Welcome to DD Durban Online. We're a church family on mission to see Durban change into a place where Jesus reigns. Here is this week's message.
Okay, we are reading this morning from John 20 from the NIV version. So early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking that he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned towards him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you very much. Great. Ladies and gents, we are in a series we call God, I Have Questions. And this series is focused on asking questions that people inside as well as outside of church would many times want to put up their hands and ask God. Last week we kicked it off with the question, how can a good and all-powerful God still allow evil in this world? If you want to know what's the answer to that question, you're more than welcome to go onto our YouTube page and go and listen to how we unpacked that question. But today's question falls beautifully within Resurrection Sunday. A question that I believe many people have in life, whether you ask it out loud or whether it's just something that's nubbing away in your heart here inside. And this is the question, God, what's my purpose in life? Why am I here? What's the reason for me being alive? And I don't think there is a better space and a better story that breaks open the wonderful nature and the beauty of humanity's purpose in Jesus than the resurrection itself. So this morning we've listened to that story, and the way I'd like to speak about purpose this morning is I just want to show you guys, we find a few things in this little story. The first thing that we discover is we look at how people find purpose. Secondly, we look at how people can lose their sense of purpose. And then lastly, we're going to look at how Jesus secures our sense of purpose. So, first of all, how do we find purpose in life? In fact, before I start answering this question, I want to ask you quickly. Turn to the person next to you and tell them, what do you think is your purpose in this life? Great. Seems like some great wisdom is being sent left and right, husband and wife. so clearly. Some wives, husbands making clear, my purpose is to be served by you. No, I'm joking, not at all today. Great, guys. So no, whenever I think about this question of purpose, it's basically the big three questions. And any Marvel fans in the house quickly, because I always get that one that I go back to. Okay, cool, we have a few. It's that moment in the second Avengers Endgame where it's, who's Gamora? Where's Gamora? Why is Gamora? Kind of that vibe. So it's all these questions that comes to the front whenever we think of this purpose question. It's the, who am I? Why am I here? And where do I belong? And if we want to know more about purpose, we need to discover the following. We need to discover that purpose is something that emerges from out of our identity. So the moment you know who you are, you will find out why you are here and where do you belong. Purpose is key for our lives to have meaning. But before we find that meaning, we need to discover identity. So I thought maybe I'll give you guys quickly 2 examples. Most of you guys that's journeyed with me will know this, but seeing that there's a lot of new people, I'm going to use this one in anyways. So quickly on the screen, identify this for me. What is that? That's the identity of that thing. It's called a cup, coffee mug. Now, I'll spare you guys this morning. I don't have a real one with me. You'll discover later on why. Okay, now that we know what it is, what do we do with coffee mugs? We drink coffee, hot drinks out of them. It's amazing. It's specifically designed for hot drinks. That's why it has that little ear that you can hold onto and your hands don't burn. Somebody very carefully designed and thought this cup or this item out and designed and created it. Now, if it's a coffee mug and you drink coffee from it, where do you put it? It belongs with the other mugs. There we go. It's a cup. It looks like a cup. It must be with the other cups. Okay, so there we have it. Very clear example that your identity informs your activity. However, if I should ask you this question quickly, who do you want to be one day when you grow up? What would your answer be? We all were there when we were young. Any policemen in the house? Huh? One day when I grow up, oh, fireman, doctor. I'm going to be a doctor one day when anybody like that in the house? Okay, some people there. I'm going to be married one day when I get grown up. That was mine. Okay. What's interesting about that question is whenever I ask people that, they always answer with their activity or their occupation. I said, who are you going to be one day when you grow up? And you always say, I am going to be. And then you put maybe your career or something in there. It's most likely the thing that happens. And then I just stopped them for a moment and said, I didn't ask you what you're going to do. I asked you, who are you going to be? You see how quickly we connect what we do and who we are with one another? But we get it the wrong way around so easily. The other part of this cup and the danger behind not knowing your identity is if you maybe have a wrong idea of who you are. Just imagine this cup had a mind of its own. And it decided, I don't want to be a cup. I want to be a hammer. Hammers are hardcore. They nail stuff. Where do you put hammers? In the garage. What's going to happen to that cup if it goes and sleeps in the garage and toolbox? Maybe survive. If it does, gets enough courage together and says, now I'm going to be a hammer. I'll show you guys. And he goes for its first nail. What's going to happen? Broken. Okay, that's just like an extreme example of it. Some extra sound effects. But you laugh at that. The reality is so many people I sit with sound like a broken cup. You know, because they're cups trying to be hammers. And they were not made to be that. So if you have a wrong view of who you are, your purpose will be one filled with brokenness in life. So the key when it comes to how we put our identities together is that our identity becomes foundational for our purpose in life. We make it. These two things walk hand in hand. They are inseparable from one another. Maybe to give you another example of how we formulate this in our world today. In our world, I don't know if you know this, but there are 2 basic big categories of cultures in the world. Did you guys know this? There's this huge collective culture group, the biggest culture in the world. In fact, I put it on a map there for you guys. You can see all the red is the collective cultures, and all the yellow is where you get individualistic cultures. And both of these cultures formulate identity differently. You'll see the individualistic culture is what's known today also as the Western culture. It's a very new culture. It's not even basically 200 years old, if it's even that old, really formulated as a culture. But the oldest culture in the world, the one that Jesus even grew up in, is a collective culture. It's very much community-driven, family, everything, everybody around it. Okay, so in a collective culture, the way people form identity is it's assigned to you at birth. Your community looks at you, you're the eldest, you get this specific role, this is who you are in the community. You're the eldest. And because you're the eldest, you get assigned a certain purpose in this community. And that's your responsibility. So depending on what identity the community gives you, your life purpose starts forming around it. Should you succeed in that assignment, you get celebrated by the community. You get honored. You get lifted up by the community. Should you fail, you get shamed by that community, and you don't feel like you have a place to belong anymore. In an individualistic culture, it works a little bit different. In an individualistic culture, I would actually say it's worse than in a collective culture. Because in an individualistic culture, the way we get identity is it's self-discovery. You need to decide for yourself who you're going to be one day. It's all resting on your shoulders. And then on top of that, you need to make whatever decision you've grabbed and held on to in terms of who I want to be one day, you need to actually make that a success. You need to go as far as you possibly can to prove to the world around you that I am going to be the best doctor in the world. That's kind of the picture that we have. The reason why I'm pointing these two pictures out to you guys is because both of them, when it comes to our identity and our purpose, are ways of formulating purpose that we need to earn all the way through. It's something we need to work for. It's not a gift. You might choose it, but then you need to work for it. And if you don't make it, you're not successful and you're shunned by society. You're down the ladder. There we go. That's the picture of how we formulate purpose. You'll now see why this is super important in our story. So let's get back to question number 2 then. First one is this is how we find purpose. Secondly, how we lose purpose is found here in verse 11 and 14. It says the following. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. She turned around. She saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. What do we have here? We have a lady that's in a massive state of loss. She's lost the most valuable thing in her life. Her rabbi, her teacher. That morning, imagine with me, she's coming to the tomb to honor him, make sure that he's properly buried. And what does she find? The one person whose life has been taken from her now has vanished. He's not even there anymore. You thought it was bad news. The news just became even worse for her. This is the last little bit of significance in her life that she can live out now, is to give Jesus a proper burial. And the next moment she discovers he's not even there. She's devastated. So devastated that when she sees him, she doesn't even recognize who he is. She is stuck in what I'd like to call a graveyard, a place of loss. I don't know about you, but so many people live there. So many of us live in the shadow of disappointment, seeking purpose in something that we have already lost. This is so important to hear, guys. So many people seek purpose in the places where we've lost something. We get stuck here. I lost my life purpose. You see, the key to not losing your purpose is to not build it on something temporary. That's the key. We lose it day in and day out because we build it on temporary things. And the moment we lose it, our whole lives fall apart. What's the meaning of my life? I don't have this anymore. Suddenly everything is meaningless. I have no more significance because I've built it on something that's not of eternal worth. And that's not eternal at all. We build it on people, relationships, build it on jobs, we build it on success, we build it on passion. All of these kinds of dreams that we have ahead of us, and that's my significance. My purpose is this. I can tell you one of my journeys that I went through the past season. I was in Bloemfontein. God did an amazing work through me and Gerda. And we saw God doing wonderful things by growing a church in that space to 600 people. We started with 30 people in a building, and we were 600 when we left. And we were in a nightclub. We turned it into a light club. It was amazing. And I felt so significant because I'm leading this amazing church. God is doing wonderful things. And it was really miraculous. We saw people coming together from across cultures, from across boundary lines, urban, suburban, poor, rich, young, old, everybody. I mean, we had cricket stars and Protea cricket players, and we had people sitting on the street of the church. That was the level of what God did in that space. It was so amazing. It was truly a significant season. Experienced God telling me I need to come down to Durban. I need to come and plant and do something new here. I arrive. We were supposed to have another couple joining us. Just as we arrived, they let us know they won't be coming anymore. So now I have a church of 4 people. Do you know how quickly my sense of significance dropped? Down in the dumps. I felt like I'm a nobody. And you know, it's so interesting to see how we do this. When we find our meaning or our purpose and significance in life, we many times find it in the expression of our significance. I want to tell you something. The things you do don't make you significant. You make it significant. And do you know why? Because you are significant. It's because God made you significant that the things you do now becomes of value and of significance. So how do we answer the question? When am I busy with something significant? Well, whenever I'm busy with his story, by the way, just quickly want to point that. It's a freebie. Just want to throw it in there quickly. If you want to know whether you have a life purpose of significance, you're busy with what he's doing in your life. If it's leading a church of 4 people, it's the most significant thing you can do. If you think it's leading a church of 600, but he's called you for 4, then you're busy with the most insignificant thing in your life. Purpose centers around something that he does. I wonder this morning, however, how many of us are finding themselves in front of a tomb, standing outside of that space, and still hoping for meaning in my life. I've lost my purpose now. I don't do this anymore. We're like Mary. We've lost our sense of significance and our sense of meaning, and we think it's all gone because we've built it on temporary things. I just wrote a few tombs down maybe. Maybe your tomb's name is Lost Opportunity. So hoping I'm going to get that, but I missed out. And now that makes me, maybe your tomb's name is Lost Relationship. This person has walked out of my life. I lost them. And I only lived for them. And now they're gone. Maybe it's lost reputation. Standing in society. And now suddenly I'm a nobody. Maybe it's I lost my passion for my work, stuff that I'm doing. God's busy working. Whatever it is, I want you to hang around a little bit longer. Just like Mary did that morning. Because here comes the good news. The good news is that Jesus came to secure our sense of purpose. To secure it in a big way. It goes as follows. It's verse 16. Jesus looks at Mary. Now you need to remember, Mary is sitting there. She is devastated. She's looking. She doesn't even see Jesus. Then she sees 2 angels. I mean, hello, people. Anybody seen angels lately? Just quickly show me your hands. If you had, I promise you would probably come and tell me. It would have been quite a significant event, correct? She's seen angels, but she's crying. And then she sees a guy she thinks is a gardener. And she even addresses him. She asks, the gardener, where's Jesus? Who's taken my Lord? And then finally, Jesus looks at her and he says, Mary. That's it. No lecture. No, why isn't your faith big enough? Why don't you see me? What's going on with you? He just says, Mary. He calls her by name. It's so profound. The moment Jesus calls Mary, her eyes open, and suddenly she sees. And everything in her life that she thought came to an end, a devastating, humiliating end, her life's purpose, her meaning, her identity, her significance in this world, everything ended right now with Jesus in this grave, suddenly comes alive. It's resurrected within one word, Mary. That's it. I want you to note that Jesus does not give her a lecture. He gives her a name. He starts with her identity. You guys see this? Do you see what he's busy doing? He's busy formulating the foundation on which this lady will find now her life's purpose being built on for the rest of her wonderful and eternal life. He calls her Mary. Now, part of the grace of Jesus is not just the fact that Jesus rose from the grave that morning, but also in this little story that Jesus came and he found Mary. I want to say this. Mary does not find Jesus. He finds her in her great sense of loss, and he calls her. So in other words, you discover your purpose not by finding God, but by being found by him. It's the day that you hear him calling you by name that your heart gets arrested, and suddenly life is birthed within you. You know, this word calling is so profound. The fact that Jesus calls her. Two things quickly that I want to point out. Firstly, can you note that Mary is clearly not working for her identity? She's not earning it in this moment. It's given to her. It's the truth of Christianity. The moment you believe in Jesus, he gives you, he gives. Just quickly again, what does he do? He. Good morning, guys. He gives. You don't earn. He gives you what? The right to be called a child of God. It's a gift. Your identity in Jesus is a gift. You don't have to work for it. And as they say, once a child, always a child. I mean, what did you do to be born, by the way? Quickly think about it. How much effort did you put in to be alive here today? You would probably know by now, there were other people, they were working. And God was working through them. And therefore you are alive. You're with us. It's a gift. There's nothing that you did to become a child of your parents. And in the same way, when God calls you by name and you respond and you say, yes, I believe, that moment, you become a child. You are born again. And it's a gift. No longer do you need to work to prove your worth. You have ultimate significance and ultimate worth because you're now the king's daughter or his son. First thing about your new identity when he calls you, it's a gift. You get identity. Second thing is it's now no longer based on something temporary. Your identity originates now from someone who's eternal. Someone who will never, ever die. Hence, your purpose don't end the day when you die. It just continues. And it continues. Your meaning and significance in this life and the next can never be understated or looked down upon again. No matter what happened to you, no matter where you came from, no matter what you've lost, because the one person that you will never be able to lose, because you didn't even find him, is Jesus, because he found you. Do you see how secure your identity and your purpose now is within the King? Jesus, this is amazing. Okay, so that's the first thing. Jesus secures her identity and he calls her by name. I wonder, have you experienced God calling you by name? Or are there other things calling your name? And they become very important to you. And your life is built around those voices. I wonder. Because as long as it's there, you will find your purpose will die with that. Those voices will kill your sense of purpose and meaning and significance. Second thing that he does, he doesn't just call her, he also sends her. Right after he established identity, it says, go instead to my brothers and go and tell them. And Mary of Magdala went to the disciples with this news, I've seen the Lord. Obviously, you can imagine that lady, what state she's in. She's just seen someone risen from the dead. I don't know, any Chosen fans in the house? Anybody's watched Chosen? If you've watched Chosen, if you haven't, please go and check out the episode where Jesus resurrects Lazarus from the grave. And then you'll discover it's quite an interesting experience. It's not just, oh, Lazarus coming out, oh. There are people freaking out because the dead man is walking out of his grave. It's crazy, scary stuff. So you can imagine what's happening in this lady's heart as she immediately switches on from knowing who I am to knowing why I'm here. What's my purpose in life? My purpose in life is to go and share good news. Now, what's this good news? What's the implication of Jesus' resurrection for our life? And here's where things get really cool. So I just quickly want to show you guys two cool things and amazing things in the Bible when it comes to discovering the good news of the resurrection of Jesus. The first thing that I want to point your attention to is that at Jesus' tomb, what did Mary see when she looked in? She saw two angels, one sitting at the head and another one sitting at the foot. Now, I want you guys to just quickly travel with me throughout the Bible because this is such a significant picture of the news that Jesus and that Mary is going to be sharing about Jesus. The first time you read about two angels or seraphim guarding a space is all the way back in the book of Genesis. Anybody remember that one? Adam and Eve gets banished from the garden, and then right there at the gate of the Garden of Eden, which is the paradise, God and humanity living together, ruling over his creation, which is, by the way, if you were wondering, your purpose in this world is to rule over creation and not allow creation to rule over you. But by the way, here we have the story of Adam and Eve. They banished from the garden. They ate from the wrong tree, and they could not have heaven on earth anymore. The next big story that we read about this is actually in the tabernacle. In the Holy of Holies, there was a big curtain that hung before the Holy of Holies, which was God's presence right there in the middle, resonating. It's called the Shekinah glory of God, like this resonating fiery flame above the Ark of the Covenant with the two angels spreading their wings out. But on the curtains, before you would enter in, the passageway into the Holy of Holies, into the presence of God, into where He is, was two big angels as a symbol pointing us back to the Garden of Eden. So when you're the high priest and you're walking into that space, you know, I'm walking into heaven on earth right now. That's actually the picture. And then finally, we land here in Jesus' tomb. Two angels, one by his head, one by his feet. I wonder what that might mean. It's clear to me. It says that Jesus is the gate. He is the way to bring heaven down to earth. He has opened up that way for us. If we are in Him, all the abundance and all the blessing that was originally in the garden comes now down into your life. Your purpose is restored as ruler over this earth. You're created to bring order in such a way that life will flourish in every relationship, in every space that you find yourself in the city, and at your home, and in any other city that you find yourself in. God has called you to rule and to reign there, just like He does. That's the one cool thing. Your purpose now is to, through Jesus, bring life into this world. How do we do it? Well, we obey. Very easy. Jesus says, we say, yes. Simple as that. The moment you hear Jesus, and you can't obey Him if you don't know who He is and you don't know what He says, but the moment you discover Him, you do like Mary said, Mary, I think it's time for you to go and tell your brothers. Then you say, well, Jesus, that's a great idea. But do you know Peter, James, Paul? And that's not what she did. She's like, cool. And she goes. It's amazing. And she becomes the first person to carry the gospel. And it would change the world as we know it today. That lady. If you really want to put it down to one little moment, if she said no, I mean, who knew what the story would have happened? Just think about this for a moment. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one that I quickly want to point your attention to is, I want to take you back again to Adam and Eve. This is quite a special moment. You know, God created the world, and then He made Adam, and then He looked at Adam and He said, oh, it's not good for man to be alone. And there all the guys says amen. And God looked at Adam and He said, Adam, I'm going to make you an Eve. Now, you know what's so profound about why it wasn't good for Adam to be alone? It wasn't just for companionship, guys. You see, in the beginning, God created, and He addressed the problem in our world. He said the earth was formless and it was void. So it was chaotic, and there was no life in this earth. It was void of life. And the first 3 days, He brings order where there was chaos, and the next 3 days he fills it with life. So day 1, he separates dark from light, and then he calls it by a name. He says, darkness I call night, and light I call day. So naming things is the way we bring order in this world. So part of your ruling job in this world is to name, to identify what's going on in my life, what's going on in this work, what's going on in this relationship. Where is there spaces where I experience chaos and I need to, with authority, step in and say, this is not where it should be. It's not in line. If I organize my life in such a way, just like God rules, then I can fill it. So day 4, for instance, he fills the darkness with all the sun, the moon and the stars, and the light he fills with the sun. And they take something of his rulership role over there. They govern the day and they govern the night now. Okay? So that's the picture. What's the first job gave to Adam? Anybody want to tell me? First job? Adam, I want you to name all the animals. So what's Adam being instructed to do? He's instructed to bring order. First part of ruling. But now, Adam, now that you've ordered the world, I want you to bring life. Adam cannot bring life. He needs an Eve. And that's the reason why Adam and Eve literally means human life. Okay, why is this so significant? Because the day God made Adam and Eve, that day, God let Adam sleep. Took a very deep sleep. And then he split his side and he took out his rib. And out of that, when Adam woke up, he was like, whoa, man. And he saw something truly beautiful. And he's like, one of my flesh, one like me. Okay. Quickly fast forward to the crucifixion. Friday, we celebrated Jesus' sacrifice. And how many of you guys have noted that Jesus' legs were not broken when he was on the cross? To test whether he was dead already, they what? They put a spear inside. It split open his side. Interesting. Sounds very much like Adam. It almost sounds like we need to be expectant of an Eve coming. And then he goes for a deep sleep, full 3 days. Lekker. And when he wakes up, he gets mistaken as being a gardener. Who's the first gardener ever? His name was Mr. Adam. I want you to garden, cultivate this garden. Here we have Mary representing the bride of Christ that's being birthed out of the resurrection of Jesus, his death and his resurrection. And suddenly, there is this partnership that God puts together as his bride to multiply, fill this earth with an abundance of life. If you've ever wondered what's your purpose, it's to start ruling in this world, to bring God's way, the way, Jesus himself, to bring heaven down to this earth. And then in doing so, submitting to your true husband, to the real relationship that will produce an abundance of life in you. And I know, guys, it's difficult, this one, because how the heck am I the bride of Christ? Just trust me here. The key is intimacy. Out of intimacy flows life. So why not this morning see that your life's purpose can be built on someone eternal? And it flows from an identity that can never be taken from you. It's a gift. And you can thank him for it. And once you receive that gift, everything in your life changes. And he sends you out to represent him, his kingdom, his way. And here is his way. It's the way of love. A new commandment I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. This is how a friend loves one. He lays down his life for that person. Who's God calling you to lay down your life for in this next season? Who's in your world that he's calling and putting into your path to point to the way of life, to experience heaven on earth in its fullness? Let's pray.
Thanks for joining us online today. As a family, we would love to meet you in person, so plan a visit to our Dr. Deo Durban campus by going to drdeo.org/Durban.